This is a download from BFM 89.9, the business station.
BFM 89.9, the business station. My name is Rich Bradbury, and this is Open for Business. We're going to talk a little bit about P2P financing here in Malaysia. It's an alternative financing tool on one side and an alternative investment tool on the other. Now, I'll be speaking with a proudly Malaysian fintech platform, microLEAP, and they're focusing on the microfinance sector and is the first P2P operator in Malaysia that offers both Islamic and conventional financing on the same platform. On the line with me, I have Tunku Danny and Matthew Fernandez. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hi there.
Hi. How are you both this morning?
Yeah, very good. I have my coffee, so I'm ready to talk as much as I can.
Good. So you guys launched the Islamic Investment Notes and Islamic Financing in April 2020 to help SMEs and micro businesses, of course, hit by COVID-19. And since then, the funds disbursed to micro enterprises hosted on the platform have grown more than 1,000% in just 5 months, right?
Yes, that's right. So we've been really happy with the extreme quick growth that we've seen once we launched our Islamic products. We noticed that a lot of our P2P investors, which are the lenders that give financing to these micro enterprises that we're trying to help, a lot of them are looking for Islamic assets. And because of that, our growth in terms of investment notes that have been disbursed or been financed has grown exponentially. You know, we started in April with only 60,000 ringgit worth of funds being dispersed, and by November, microLEAP dispersed over 1 million ringgit. So we're really happy with the growth rate.
Wow. Just before we move a little bit further, Tunku, Danny and Matthew, can you just explain to us what your position within microLEAP is?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Tunku Danny. I'm the founder and CEO of microLEAP. And together with me, we have...
Matthew, I'm the COO of microLEAP.
Okay, so I mean, I understand, the basics of P2P and microfinancing, but for people who might not know a little bit about it, can you just kind of give a bit of a background as to how it works? Okay,
yes, sure. So peer-to-peer financing, or P2P, is basically where for us, a micro business or micro enterprise that is looking for financing. My favorite example is, for example, your makcik in Kuala Pilah that wants 10,000 ringgit for her kedai runcit to buy either more stock or do renovations to her small stall. So this 10,000 ringgit is funded by the crowd. So this could be up to 100 people, investing or lending small clips of money into their business through our platform. And the makcik, at the end of it, pays back monthly principal plus profit if it's Islamic, or principal plus interest if it's conventional, via our platform, and we pay back to all the P2P investors. So basically, it's like getting financing, but not through a bank, but through by up to 100 people.
Wonderful. And what do you think sets you apart from your competitors?
I think the one thing that sets us apart is that microLEAP is completely focused on the microfinance sector. So we allow issuers or borrowers to raise financing from a minimum of only 1,000 ringgit up to a maximum of 50,000 ringgit, anywhere for 6 months or up to 36 months.
Can you give me and not an example, but was there a spark why you suddenly decided to start doing this? I mean, a lot of people could or could not go to a bank to get loans from a bank. They may not want to pay their interest. They may have struggles paying their interest. Why did you decide to launch microLEAP?
Well, I was an evil banker for most of my life, so to speak. So after...
I love the honesty.
Yes, exactly. So after about 15 years in the banking business, I wanted to strike out on my own and do something that had an impact in people's lives. So I looked at microfinance because in microfinancing, a small amount of funds has a big impact on the livelihoods of the business or the people that are running it. So that is why our tagline is small steps, big impact. So when I was looking to start a microfinance company, I noticed that the Securities Commission in Malaysia was regulating P2P, peer-to-peer. So I thought that would be a great avenue for investors or lenders who can come in and crowd fund these small financing amounts into these small businesses and help them take to the next step.
I mean, it's very popular in some countries. I know it's hugely popular in China, for example. Did you take any inspiration from anywhere or look at other examples around the world which you thought might be a good framework to start with?
Yeah, I looked around, but China isn't the best place to emulate, because in China, it wasn't strongly regulated. There were a lot of many P2P operators that were unlicensed and unregulated, mushrooming around, so that people invested in these companies and then never got their money back. In Malaysia, Malaysia was the first country in ASEAN to regulate it. So I thought that was a great place to be in. And we looked at other places. We looked at UK and US, where it's very popular, and also in other parts around the region.
Matthew.
So
you seem to want to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to add as well, there's the personal financing is not allowed under Securities Commission regulations, and that I think also helped set Malaysia apart. And I'm glad that was the case, because personal financing in China and even in India, P2P, that was what really caused the collapse. So strictly business financing, working capital, business expansion. That's how it should be, and I'm glad that's the case here.
Right, and that's actually why I used the example of China, because I know it hasn't been the most secure of places. The next question there, would your model of lending, would you consider it like unsecured loans?
Yes, for us it's unsecured. So what we do to have some form of security is that we have a very strict credit algorithm that goes through our platform. So we take data points from a credit bureau that we use, and also through figures and information that investors put in through their application form. But we also use psychometric testing. Now, the reason we use psychometric testing is that these micro enterprises that we're trying to help may not have a strong credit history. So for them to go to bank without this kind of credit history that is required, they will simply be denied straight away. So we are looking at alternative credit scores. So we have tied up with a third-party platform that provides psychometric testing, and that psychometric testing data feeds into a credit algorithm so that will give us a microLEAP credit score. So this microLEAP credit score, go ahead.
Can you tell me a little bit about the testing? Yeah. That's very interesting.
Yeah. So basically, it is 20 or 30 questions that the issuer or borrower, the main key person, has to do the test. So basically, two images come up, and you have to choose: are you more likely to do A or more likely to do B? Once all the answers have been filled in, then our third-party provider will give us a detailed report of the ability or the propensity for a borrower or issuer to pay back the funds.
Very interesting. Why did you decide to do it that way?
Because we looked at, for us, credit data is key to build a credit history and to know if this, makcik in Kuala Pilah can actually pay back her funds. So we wanted to get as much credit data as possible. And, being a micro enterprise, someone who maybe sells nasi goreng on the side of the road, someone who does, sells cookies down in Johor Bahru, they may not have that credit history. So we need to have more data points to give an overall picture And that's why we looked at this alternative type of scoring method.
I also would like to add a little bit on that, because the good thing about this alternative credit scoring is for the thin files or micro entrepreneurs, as Tunku Danny touched on, because at least with the alternative credit scoring, which the likes of CGC as well as Bank Islam and Bank Rakyat, local players, institutions are using, it is something for us that's really complementary on and giving a proper overall credit score before we move forward with all our micro enterprises.
I mean, a lot of the other lenders would use things like collateral, and I suppose when you're looking at, Mac Chick, she probably won't have any collateral to kind of rely on at any point.
Correct. So that's why we definitely went to use psychometric testing, because you don't have to post collateral on our platform, and it gives an overall picture of your willingness to pay back your financing, which is very key.
All right, let's take a short break. Tunku, Danny and Matthew, and we'll be back in just a few moments. You are tuned in to Open for Business here on BFM. My name is Rich Bradbury. We are speaking with Tunku, Danny and Matthew Fernandez from microLEAP. We'll be right back in just a few moments here on BFM 89.9.
Bagi free minum. BFM 89.9, the business station.
BFM 89.9, the business station. My name is Rich Bradbury. You are tuned in to Open for Business. On the phone, I'm with Tunku Danny Muzaffar. He is the microLEAP CEO, alongside Matthew Fernandez. He is the COO over there. If you're only just joining us, microLEAP launched their Islamic Investment Notes, Islamic Financing in April 2020 to help SMEs and micro businesses hit by COVID-19. And since then, the funds disbursed to microenterprises hosted on the platform have grown more than 1,000% in just 5 months. Guys, what we want to talk about now is, have you seen kind of much socially conscious investment? You talk about how you've helped businesses thrive during COVID-19, help them out a little bit, but have you looked at, groups of people who actually come together and said, we want to help this individual particularly, or we want to help this kind of NGO particularly? Have you seen anything like that?
Well, we've seen an increase in investors definitely looking for impact investments. That's what microLEAP is all about. And added to that, we have a lot of people looking for Islamic investments, because that's what we're about as well. But we don't only just get Muslim investors, we also get Chinese and Indian investors as well. The reason we get that is that Islamic principles and ethical principles actually go hand in hand. So a lot of our investors are looking at ethical investments. If you want to raise via Sharia compliant financing, we don't allow alcohol companies, tobacco companies, gambling companies. So many of our investors are looking in terms of helping, these impact investments on these ethical type companies. So we do see an increase in these kind of investors looking for ethical investments on our platform.
Right. And who, at the end of the day, kind of has the overall say about whether or not somebody receives funds? How difficult are those decisions to make?
Yes, it is difficult. We have to make sure that they go through our strict credit risk scoring process. The last thing we want to do is be an irresponsible lender. We don't want to be an along out there who just lends because they want high returns. Right? We need to make sure that this micro enterprise or this micro business, it can afford the financing and is able to pay back the financing from month one. The last thing we want to do is to allow our P2P investors to come in and then invest into a business that's going to be out of business in the next 2 months.
I would like to add as well, like the main thing is we want to look for companies that did a pivot, exactly what TD has mentioned. The main thing is you got to jaga hati the issuer, which is the borrower, but you also got to jaga hati the investors. You got to make sure that the investors' investments are taken care of and mitigated as much as we've done. Because we also do have a kind of like a financial inclusive logic of microinsurance to help protect the principal. So that's something that a bit of a value add that microLEAP does. So at least in the event, say a food truck driver broke his arm, can't drive the food truck, can't pay back the financing, that's where the microinsurance kicks in at no extra cost. microLEAP absorbs the premiums.
I mean, that's something obviously I was going to talk about as well. Stuff like, credit risk and how do you manage that credit risk? I mean, I was reading about people who were borrowing and companies that were borrowing over in Poland, and they just essentially, they signed up for these kind of funds. They got what they needed and they essentially just disappeared. What would happen in a situation like that?
So we have a default management process in place on microLEAP's platform. So first of all, for us, default management begins at the credit risk scoring stage. So we at first have to make sure that the investment notes or the micro enterprises that we host on our platform actually is making revenue, is making profit, because at the end of the day, it's a debt instrument. So for all debt instruments, you have to pay back straight away, especially in the first month, because we allow monthly payments. So that's our first level of default management process. Only entities that can afford the financing is allowed to be hosted on our platform. So the second level is that normally they have a 7-day grace period for paying back their monthly installments. After that, we will charge them a 1% penalty per day on the monthly installment amount. And then if they don't pay back by 30 days, we actually call that the business is in default. Now, the reason we allow it really quickly, 30 days to be in default, is we want to get into the conversation with this micro enterprise in terms of, why can't you pay back? Do you have any issues on your end? How can we help? We do allow our micro enterprises to restructure their financing. So what we do is we will extend the tenor of their financing so that they have to pay less per month. If you extend the tenor, they pay less per month because you're dividing the amount you owe over a longer period. Now, it's a win-win for the P2P investors because at the end of the day, the P2P investors get more in terms of profit or interest if it's conventional. So that I know both sides are happy. P2P investors, they're getting more profit at the end of the day. The issuers or borrowers, they have to pay less per month so they can manage their monthly cash flow as it is.
1,000% growth in just 5 months, right? Where do you see yourselves? What lofty goals do you have for 2021?
Well, 2021, so we are always, how it works in microLEAP is there's always supply and demand. Okay, the supply are the P2P investors lending out the financing, and the demand side are the issuers who needs the financing. On the demand side, the issuers, we have a healthy pipeline of growth. For us, is to build that strong kind of treasure chests of P2P investors that are willing to finance these companies. So we're constantly going to, right now, we've looked at retail investors. Our next level is looking at corporates and institutional investors who are looking to believe in our story and want to help all these micro enterprises grow the businesses. So our target for 2021 is pretty lofty. We want to at least hit a financing disbursed of between 5 million to 10 million ringgit. So 1 million is just the start of it. As I told my team, we got to keep going and going because I want 5 million, 10 million to 10 million in end of 2021.
Do you see more people borrowing in 2021 than they were in 2020?
Yes, I think so. Obviously, COVID has hit them in a bad way. But because of COVID, actually, we had to be a little bit more tighter in terms of our credit risk analysis. The last thing we want to do is, as I said before, to help get our P2P investors in investing in a company that's going to be bankrupt in the next month or two. So as Matthew touched on, we looked at companies that maybe have gone online, both online and offline business so that they can, survive these testing times. But we do see that more borrowers will hear about microLEAP and come onto our platform.
Also, I'd like to add, we would like to also target the social enterprises. That's people that we really want to help as well, because that's in line with our impact investment, basically motto with microLEAP. And I think to touch on what Tunku Danny has mentioned on Islamic P2P for microLEAP, one good thing is that we make sure that the cost variable is whether you invest in a conventional or an Islamic note, because we absorb the brokerage fees. Then you as an investor you get back principal plus profit or principal plus interest for conventional at any given credit rating. But at the same token, the issuers themselves, like we always say, we are converting them from conventional to Islamic, because since they are not paying any extra cost, they're more than happy. We have a really funny video to show which is halal and which is haram, which I think we'll post on our website soon, and that will basically tell you it's on. I mean, we have everything on our FAQs, but the good thing is with this simple, easy to know that if you're not on the Sharia advisory of Securities Commission's non-Sharia compliant list, you'll be able to raise Islamic and no issues on the costing. Most of the MSMEs that we talk to, that's the first thing they ask. How much do I pay? Any extra cost? Right. And then we're like, no, we're taking care of that. They're like, oh, then fantastic, convert me. So extra pala for all of us. So if that's for lack of a better word, I'm not sure. But
great stuff. Great stuff. Final question then, guys, Tunku Danny and Matthew. Where can people find out more about you, whether or not they want to invest or whether or not they want to borrow?
Yeah, so they can go to our platform, which is www.microleapasia.com. And there we will have a lot of information of if you want to be an investor, and you can join our League of Extraordinary Investors, which is basically you get points for more investment notes you invest in, and the longer tenor type notes that you invest in, you get more points. And if you're an issuer or borrower, please go on the same website, microleapasia.com, and you'll find out how to apply and the documents you require, and the kind of business funding calculator will give you a kind of taste of how much you have to pay back a month, so you know exactly how much it's going to cost you.
Great. Tunku Danny and Matthew Fernandez, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me this morning.
Thank you very much, Richard. It was great.
You have been tuned in to Open for Business here on Enterprise on BFM 89.9. I've been speaking with Tunku Danny and Matthew Fernandez from microLEAP Malaysia. They're an Islamic and Conventional P2P, peer-to-peer microfinancing platform regulated by the Securities Commission Malaysia, one of only 11 here in Malaysia. Stay tuned. After these messages, we'll have more coming up here on BFM 89.9, the business station.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To find more great interviews, go to bfm.my or find us on iTunes. BFM 89.9, the business station.